I'm watching every single Planet of the Apes movie, and today we will delve into a story that comes from the Bible and grafted onto a civilization of apes, and their leader embarking on an Old Testament journey to save his people. War of the Planet of the Apes is my favorite Planet of the Apes film. This movie captures so many different eras of filmmaking and blends them together wonderfully. I think it's the best that the motion capture has ever looked, and I think that the scope of the story is perfect for Planet of the Apes. Caesar literally becomes a biblical figure in this movie that will live on in history far longer than his ape earthly body will. War of the Planet of the Apes is the best Planet of the Apes film. We open with title cards that bring this trilogy together by using the words in the titles to cleverly describe the different scenarios recapping the other movies. This movie is definitively set 15 years after Rise, but I'm not really sure how long after Dawn because they say 2 years, but I saw a bunch of sweaty nerds arguing about it over the internet, so I'm really not sure. The first real image we see in this movie is a team of Black Ops Army guys going through the woods with words engraved on their helmet, one of them saying Monkey Killer. They've come into contact with some apes. And we see traitors to the ape cause? Those who don't back Caesar after the events of Dawn have gone to the human side and started to fight against the apes. They're working together to destroy Caesar's kingdom. This movie sets its tone instantly with a huge battle between apes and humans, and other apes, really living up to that title War for the Planet of the Apes at this point. One ape escapes the battle on horseback and rides off. This shit is incredible, man. This whole video is going to be me gushing about War for the Planet of the Apes, just letting you know now. The scale is ridiculous. Yet again, this movie is directed by Matt Reeves. Something in the way. I think he really doubles down for his take on the ape franchise, and really leans into the aspects of Dawn that were fresh and new that we hadn't seen before. We're seeing this tried and true battle of apes and humans, but he adds one wrinkle of apes being on both sides this time. The apes resurge against his Black Ops team and drive them off with reinforcements. One human gets a radio and calls back to the Colonel. We'll be introduced to him soon. He is a big player in this movie. The apes overwhelm the humans and stave off the battle. Use the word stave, that was pretty crazy, huh? POV, you're the king of Ape City, walking through your kingdom. Whoa, Caesar is so much more like grizzled and aged in this movie than I remembered. The motion capture just looks so good. Chef's kiss. They've captured the humans from the battle to interrogate them. Maurice! One of the humans who has been captured recognizes Caesar as the great leader of the apes. We learn that the apes working with the humans are active Koba sympathizers. So let me do some table setting. It feels like we're already flying over the Bermuda Triangle of lore and it's just started. First off, these soldiers are the military camp that Dreyfus called at the end of Dawn, making this a direct continuation from Dawn. They all have these Alpha Omega brandings on their head, which is a nice nod to Beneath the Planet of the Apes, because they had the Alpha Omega bomb with the same insignia on the side. These apes have decided they don't want to fight for Caesar, they'd rather fight with the humans for an ability to survive in this new world. But yes, this is the military that was called at the end of Dawn, and we're dropped right into the action 2 years later. Caesar is being hunted by this military, but he's trying to protect the apes that he has left. Caesar decides to let the humans go, but this time he gives them a message, the same one he gave the humans in Dawn. The woods are for the apes. This movie is gorgeously shot, by the way. It looks like this the whole time. Caesar talks to Maurice about how Koba still haunts them even after his death, and we will see that recurring throughout this movie. Caesar has visions of Koba, and the weight of the guilt of killing him is constantly hanging over his head, and he feels like he can't save everyone because he didn't save Koba. This Caesar is so weighed down now by the guilt of killing Koba, as well as the responsibility of looking after the rest of the apes after Dawn. He's tired. I love the perspective of this story that centers around Caesar's search for a safe place for his people. He just wants to give the apes a safe place to live and grow, and cultivate that society we'll see in the original Planet of the Apes movie. Caesar's baby son from the last movie is still a baby, but we find out his name is Cornelius. Another nod to the original flicks, love it. Caesar's eldest son is now a scout for Caesar and the whole kingdom, and he has just returned from a trip with Rocket. Ooh, and he's got a little girlfriend. The eldest son reports back, sorry, I still don't know his name. I should look it up, but I haven't. His eldest son reports that on their journey, he and Rocket found a new place for them to call home. They just have to travel there. The ape doctrine of this movie is apes together strong, and in the night, another Black Ops team comes in and swoops into their waterfall, cave, cavern home. We find out that the Colonel is here. They report on the radio that King Kong is dead, which means Caesar has been killed. But funny enough, Caesar hears this on a radio, so he's obviously not dead. The Colonel and Caesar meet face to face. He didn't kill Caesar, but rather his wife and son. His family is dead. The Colonel escapes, and Caesar has lost his entire family, but he finds his youngest baby son hiding. The The apes get ready to make an exodus to the promised land. You see what I'm saying? This is literally a biblical epic in scope. It's incredible. Caesar decides he is going to go and kill the colonel, while the rest of their apes make their mass exodus out of the woods. The apes are without a leader, and Caesar is going in alone. He's got a fucking shotgun on a horse, man. This shit fucking rips. You can't tell me otherwise. Oh, let's go. His boys from Rise come with him. Rocket, Maurice, and the gorilla whose name escapes me at this time meet up with Caesar to help him take down the colonel. Yet again, the post-apocalyptic sets and scenery in this movie are amazing. The apes find abandoned houses and run into a human who is hauling some logs. The human pulls a gun, but then Caesar promptly fills him with lead. This shot of like the ape squad busting through the door with guns drawn is awesome. They walk into a room and find a child. Maurice shows kindness and sees that there's something wrong with the girl. He tells Caesar they need to take her with them, and they end up bringing her with them for the rest of this movie. They find like a human military encampment, and they also find the ape that sold them out and got Caesar's wife and son killed. The apes do like a stealth takedown, which rocks. I love that this movie is just like a revenge plot for Caesar for most of it, but he's justified and backed by his squad, so it doesn't even matter. They're just tearing shit up. Caesar has his first vision of Koba, and Koba says to him,
"Ape, not kill. Ape."
The apes have been given the information that the humans are meeting up at this human fortress in the snow, so they have to go make their way to there, thinking that the colonel will be there. And they have now entered the beginning of Red Dead 2, seemingly. The apes come across, in the snow, a pile of humans that have obviously been killed by other humans. Something is afoot. One of them wakes up and they realize that he can't speak. The simian flu has mutated into this new strain that devolves humans and takes away their ability to critically think, and just strips them of their intelligence. The humans are killing off their own when they contract this new strain of the simian flu, because they're not sure if it's contagious and they want to stomp it out. We learn that the humans are going to the border to end all apes. Every encampment of humans is going to group up and exterminate the apes once and for all. Okay, so now it's time for a pause. We are now introduced to a character named Bad Ape. He is like really annoying. There's a little chase through the snow with him where he's revealed. He's just kind of like this small ape that joins the crew and is really like the comic relief for this movie. I understand that this movie is incredibly dour and like kind of bleak, but personally he's the biggest issue with this movie for me. Like sometimes I find him endearing like towards the end of the movie, but the section where he's introduced is kind of a snooze fest. I don't know, a lot of people really like him, so I guess he just doesn't connect for me. Bro up the pole. Bad Ape doesn't understand the sign language of Caesar's clan, and they realize that he's not part of their group, but he is from a different group of intelligent apes. He speaks English quite well, and Caesar and the crew learn his backstory. He's from a zoo, and he says that all the apes from that zoo are dead. This leads to a whole nother question of like, how many apes in the world actually contracted intelligence, and did it have to do specifically with ALZ 112 or 113, or was it more based in the simian flu and the spread of that? Bad Ape says he found a human zoo where there are huge walls. This is where the Caesar squad has to go. Look at this dumbass in his stupid little vest. The apes find their way to a fortress which is nestled between two snowy mountains. They're ambushed while scouting, and the gorilla, whose name escapes me still at this moment, is stabbed by a bayonet. He dies in Caesar's arms, peacefully, knowing that he saved Caesar. The human girl cries and puts a flower in his ear that they picked during their journey. Luca. His name's Luca, which I feel like is a weird name for an ape in this movie, but it's Luca. Sorry, man. Rest in peace. Maurice tells Caesar that he's acting like Koba for trying to get revenge. Caesar tells them it was a mistake bringing them all along, and goes in alone to try and kill the colonel. Along this path he takes, we see apes strung up on crosses, essentially. He crests a cliff and sees the entirety of his ape civilization in a cage. Caesar frees one of the apes that was strung up on the crosses, but is still alive, and he tells Caesar that all of the apes were captured and taken back to this fortress. They have the apes in like a work camp. Yikes. Caesar is knocked out by a giant gorilla and taken into the fortress. He's brought face to face with the colonel, who is played by Woody Harrelson. One of the humans that Caesar let live in the beginning of the movie now has a crossbow trained on his temple. Caesar is thrown in a cage across from the rest of his people by himself. This is essentially where he becomes Moses from the Bible. His people seem to have lost faith that they'll ever be freed now that their fearless leader was penned up just like them. Caesar's baby son is in a cage and he asks himself, all of the apes are chained up by their feet and now witness as this militant force of humans marches and has a rally to their leader, the colonel. The national anthem plays as apes are whipped into submission and forced to work, building some kind of wall. This wall is not to keep the apes out, but rather keep any humans from getting in. The colonel is walling himself in so that the virus cannot spread and knock out some of his guys. That army from the north that they thought was meeting them at this fortress is actually coming to destroy this militant force. An old orangutan messes up in his work and starts getting whipped by one of the gorillas on the human side, Red Donkey. Caesar speaks up for the old ape and the rest of the apes start to revolt a little bit. Caesar is taken to the colonel and is made an example out of by being beaten for the old man. Caesar demands food and water for the apes, and the colonel shoots the old ape in the head. the apes get back to work. On the outside, the ape squad tries to find a way to help from outside the fortress. Caesar is literally strung up on a cross, I'm telling you. This is a biblical epic about an exodus to the promised land, I'm telling you. And I don't want to come off like some devout, religious person. I'm not at all. I just am so fascinated that this movie was made. A biblical epic about monkeys is something I truly can't believe got through the studio system, onto a big screen, and became a blockbuster. We see that the colonel has the word history scrawled on his wall. His command post is truly like a psychotic little room. He's a maniac. Caesar confronts the colonel about killing his own men, and the colonel tells Caesar his main thesis. He wants to make sure that the human race is preserved, because the apes are getting more intelligent and the humans are devolving. He is a fearmonger who is full of that same fear he's feeding to other people in himself. He tells Caesar about the mutated disease and how it'll flip the natural order of apes and humans, which would in turn get us to the original Planet of the Apes. He talks about sacrificing his only son and shooting him in the head to put him out of his misery as he started to devolve. The colonel feels that he is a righteous killer that is saving humanity, when in reality he's just slaughtering his own. He calls the battle between him and the other humans a holy war and the culmination of all human civilization, and that it stops right here depending on who wins. Bad Ape stumbles into a tunnel that leads under the fortress, and the ape squad decides they're going to use this to help from the outside. Caesar's standing up to get food and water for the apes actually works, and they are given food and water to start the day. Red Donkey, the big gorilla that works with the humans, decides to give Caesar a drink, but in turn just pours the entire bucket of freezing water on him in the snow. Meanwhile, the ape squad is underneath in the tunnels trying to see if they can find a way to help Caesar. There's really funny graffiti that says "Apocalypse Now," and I'm just thinking, why are they relating it to a movie at this point? Civilization is so far gone that I feel like a movie about Vietnam has nothing to do with this, but I think it's funny. Caesar has another hallucination of Koba, and Koba tells him this.
Apes all die here.
The colonel takes him off this faux crucifix and tells them to put Caesar back to work. The human girl has now gone into the fortress. Quite easily, I'll add. She just kind of waltzes in and no one stops her. And she walks up to the apes, which I feel like are their greatest asset, and no one really bats an eye. She gives Caesar a doll that she's been carrying with her the entire journey and brings him some water. The other apes call the girl over and give her some food to give to Caesar. The people stand behind their leader. Apes together strong. He has to save them. Rocket sacrifices himself so that the little girl can get away, but instead of killing him, the colonel interrogates him about other apes outside the facility and throws him in a cage. This red gorilla is a real dick, man. Just beating the shit out of him. He's like the colonel's main right-hand ape. He's like the enforcer. Rocket tells Caesar he has an escape plan. The rallies of this militant group of humans are insane. Really striking imagery if you catch my drift. The colonel finds the doll that the girl gave Caesar laying in the cage, and Caesar is sent to the quarry. He's giving signals to Maurice from outside the fortress. God, I love Maurice. It's time for an ape escape. Maurice and Bad Ape are going to use the tunnels to pull the apes from underground into the tunnels to get out. Maurice gives the human girl the name Nova. Let's go, originals mentioned. But we see water start to leak through the tunnels. Bad Ape digs from underneath the cage, sticking his head out in this silly little shot, but Maurice sees the water seeping into the tunnels and pulls him back down. The children are in a different cage and they realize if they go that way, they'll flood the entire tunnel system, leaving them stranded. They're gonna have to get the children out from above ground. Guys, I am not even kidding, we are 9 movies in, and this is the first time there is a poop slinging scene in a franchise about monkeys. I find that astounding. Finally, we've made it to peak monkey comedy. This is their distraction. This shit is vile. Oh my god. They pull a soldier into the tunnels and take his keys. And his gun. The plan is in motion. Caesar and Rocket make their way to the children, and Caesar is finally reunited with his son. They transfer the babies into the main cage, and they're all going to escape together. Caesar admits that he is just like Koba, and all he needs to do is kill the colonel. He is filled with hate. He's having all the apes leave without him. The human war starts. Helicopters are sending missiles in from above. The fortress is shooting missiles at those helicopters, and forces are coming. It's time for the war to begin. The humans can't find the colonel. He's nowhere to be found, but Caesar is gonna go find him and kill him. Caesar makes it to his quarters and finds it in disarray, and he finds the colonel drunk in bed, covered in blood. Caesar picks up his gun, but he realizes that the colonel has devolved and cannot speak. The doll he found earlier had the disease on it from the little girl, and he was infected. He pulls the gun closer to his head. He wants Caesar to shoot and kill him. He became the very thing he was so afraid of. Caesar decides not to kill the colonel and not become Koba. He will be a better man. Sorry, I had to get one of those in these videos. The colonel grabs the gun and shoots himself. A war is raging outside, and the red gorilla finally sees his fate. He's gonna die alongside these humans that don't care about him. The humans see the apes escaping through the tunnels and start to shoot them. Caesar sees a gas tank and knows what he has to do. He grabs a belt of grenades and cascades down the fortress on a burning American flag. The red gorilla sees his people being slaughtered, and Caesar is shot by an arrow by the same human he let live in the beginning of the movie. The red gorilla absolutely pastes this human and sends a grenade right at his feet. He has saved Caesar, but he is promptly executed by the humans above. He made a turn to save his people in the end, and I love that. Caesar launches a grenade at the oil tank and blows up the entire fortress. This shot is fucking crazy. Caesar quickly slides into the tunnels before the entire fortress is capsized. Caesar looks up at the mountain and sees an avalanche forming at the top, while the humans cheer on in their victory. The entire fortress and all of the humans are destroyed by this insanely avalanche-prone architecture, and Caesar sees all the rest of the apes in the trees avoiding the avalanche. He has saved his people and led them out of captivity. And now we see the apes venture to their promised land. They finally arrive at their new home, and Caesar, with Maurice, look over the apes. Caesar is still mortally injured by that crossbow shot, and he tells Maurice that they are all home now and they'll be okay with or without him. Maurice crying, no, don't fucking do that to me. Maurice tells Caesar that his son will know who his father was and what he did for all the apes. Man, they've come a long way from that animal shelter in San Francisco. Caesar looks on his apes and lets out a big sigh. His work is done. Caesar passes on, and the apes will live on to go through the adventures of Planet of the Apes, 1969. Overall, I feel that War for the Planet of the Apes is almost perfect as a Planet of the Apes movie. It encapsulates so much of what I love about these movies. Caesar's character arc being fully realized and finished brings a tear to my eye every single time. He finally established a place where apes could live on and be safe and cultivate a civilization. I love that the location at the end pretty heavily resembles the Ape City from the original movies. I love Maurice, and I love that he's a core part of this movie and that he's not relegated to a background player. And this movie has such a vibe of like community and the people around you. And now why I think it's a biblical epic? Because it is. I don't know. It's literally the book of Exodus from the Bible. It's Moses freeing his people from Egypt and bringing them to the promised land. The way this movie feels is akin to like a Ben-Hur or one of those old 4-hour epics set in the biblical time period. I think it's astounding that they can make a movie like this and that it does so well in theaters. I love this movie so much, and it, again, is my favorite Planet of the Apes film. It's just amazing. This brings us to the end of like the main trilogy people think of, Planet of the Apes, but we have one more movie. Next time, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe? It helps out the channel a ton, and when I hit 1,000, I'm gonna do a full collection video on my entire physical media collection. Really enjoyed this video, you can show your support by going to my Patreon. I have a monthly $1 tier that gives you these videos a day early, and there's actually going to be a commentary track of me and my friends watching War for the Planet of the Apes in my Patreon. It will be in the higher tier. Don't worry, the $1 a month videos early is sticking around. Oh, and one more thing. I started a second channel. It's Billy Advanced SP. I'm gonna link it down in the description. That's where I'm gonna do a lot of my like stream highlights and like second ideas for videos that I wouldn't put on this channel. So if you want more content from me, there's gonna be stuff over there. So go there and go to my Twitch if you want, because I'll be trying to stream more as we go. I don't know, we'll see. But Billy Advanced is where you're gonna go on Twitch. There you go. Hope you all have a great day. See you next time.
Who are these people?